Hello, welcome to the latest trigger of Ridcully's book reviews. I'm Ridcully. Good to be talking with you again. I needed to knock another book out. I go through about 6 books in between each review, so I need to start getting faster on the review so I can get caught up. The book I'm doing today is Dungeon Calamity, the Divine Dungeon, Book 3 series by Dakota Kraut. God damn cat, stop knocking the camera around. The first book in this series of the Divine Dungeon series was really good, and this third one was I read it because it was in the series and I'd enjoyed the first one, but it really wasn't that good. And the problem that he runs into in this series is kind of a similar problem that you run into the games, your games like Dungeons and Dragons, in that there's no real balance in the characters between first level and 20th level. In anything that you're trying to make realistic, a really powerful person, a president or an emperor or a king, can still fall down a flight of stairs and be killed. When you're working with a magical game like Dungeons and Dragons, or the rules that he kind of tries to establish in this book, you're under the problem that some characters become extremely powerful, and so it's really hard to write, and he just doesn't pull that off. The dungeon in the book has a personality. The dungeon in the book has a personality and an intelligence, and because it's a dungeon, it has all these magical powers to suck in energy from the world and create things. And the main characters in the book don't. He's actually resurrected one and made him like a golem instead of like a soul. He has this gem that holds all of his spirit energy and his memories. The main character Dale, and he's at odds with the dungeon. And later on in the book it explains it, how there's a twist at the end, and I'll get to that. But it doesn't. At the first of the book, they're at odds with you, and it doesn't really explain why. Like the dungeons, everybody's like, you have a beast core, you have this gem inside you that'll help you get powerful really fast and really easy, and is a huge benefit. What can we do to get it? And Del won't tell him. And the secret is all you have to do is swear allegiance to the dungeon, and he'll make you like that. Because in this world, a magical oath actually has magic that binds it, and you die if you break it. And that's one of the cool concepts that actually plays out and is consistent. The problem is different characters, as they build up, they become basically gods. And so whenever you have a fight, you'll have 1,000 normal people, a couple of demigods, and a couple of gods. And all the 1,000 normal people will be fighting 1,000 of the bad guy, and one of these gods or demigods will show up on one side or the other, completely annihilate all the 1,000 normal people on the other side. And so it's disheartening to read. It makes you feel like, well, why would these thousands of people on either side even go out to fight if it's all going to be decided in the end by the two main gods when they fight? And he's not good. He doesn't explain that. He isn't consistent with it. He doesn't bring it through. The dungeon going up through the ranks is just super fast. He's just like, I absorbed a whole bunch of power and now I have a new rank. And then he adds a lot of powers, he adds a lot of rules, and then, like most plot holes and most bad writing, he steps all over them. The entire book is full of conveniences. He will conveniently forget that he had done something just a little bit ago, but now it works, but he doesn't even try, or before he never even tried, but now he remembers and he does it, and back and forth. And the conveniences actually make the book a poor book. Quickly written, not very good. For example, he's got one of these demigods coming down to kill him, and he drops the ceiling on him, and the demigod puts his hand up and stops the ceiling, and he's telling the henchman, knock the wall down while I'm holding up the ceiling. And the dungeon is like, slowly putting weight on, trying to crush him, and it kind of indicates that he can put on a whole bunch more, and he doesn't. And then they somehow cheat, and then the other group, Dale and his group, is on in another trap, and they're competing against each other. You know, he never lets any of the characters know what the rules are. He will just randomly send new monsters after a few guys to test the monsters out and slaughter them, so there's no sense of fairness. You know, even though they're not built-up characters, that, you know, they're just background noise, it gives you a sense of the dungeon is unfair. Why would people go into a... I guess people would for greed if you didn't do it too often. But he does it often enough, and in the book, he doesn't give any reason to it. And at the same time, he tries to make the dungeon somewhat have morals. So you're conflicted. It's like, well, we're rooting for the dungeon, and he does stuff like this, and just kills people for fun. It just doesn't work. The imbalance in the fighting, poor writing. The characters are interesting, which I guess most people find is one of the most important things. You know, which, you know, like Jordan started out, his characters were interesting. The story got to be horrible, but the characters were interesting, at least at the start they were. Kind of like with Rian Johnson, you know, The Last Jedi. He had lots of eye candy and lots of explosions and lots of CGI, but as soon as you was able to stop and actually think about the story, it fell apart. Well, I mean, this book isn't near as bad as either of those, but it is pretty bad. And a lot of the characters weren't likable. What are some of the examples? Oh yeah, these necromantic demigods show up in town and they just capture all of the royal delegations, even though the royal delegations are demigods themselves and should have demigod bodyguards. He doesn't explain that. He's just like, you know, how did the necromancers overpower them so easily and kill randomly whoever? Just a constant story of conveniences. You know, oh, the bodyguards must not have been... He doesn't even explain a lot of the conveniences. He just says that they're there. And so it's really kind of frustrating. The one twist at the end of the book, though, that was kind of fun, if you make it to the end of the book, I would say don't read this book. Read the first one and leave it at that. The next ones aren't worth reading. Is you find out that Dale is and the dungeon are the same thing. There's a portal opened up that actually goes back in time, and Dale goes through and he's trying to save the dungeon sprite. And he gets caught by the necromancers and sacrificed to make a new dungeon. Well, because the portals went back in time, it turns out that his sacrifice and his beast court that he was made, because he's kind of a golem now, to make this new dungeon, is making the actual dungeon. So it was a time twist that was kind of cleverly done. You know, a lot of the book was kind of built up towards that, and it did work. Or if it wasn't built up towards that, he saw the opportunity and made that work. So the ending did have a cool time element twist to it. But it's not worth reading the whole rest of the book to get to. Clever twist at the end. The characters, you know, I lost interest in a lot of them. The first book, the characters really have a lot more personality. This third book, they lose a lot of their personality, and some of the personality and a lot of the quirks that they were built up to have were changed or swapped back and forth for convenience enough times that I lost interest in them. So I'd give this book definitely a thumbs down. Don't bother reading it. Boy, I mean, if the choice between reading this or watching The Last Jedi, definitely read the book. If it was a choice between this or reading a Robert Jordan book, if it was one of the first 5 Robert Jordan books, that would be, you know, read the Robert Jordan book. If it's past the 5th book, definitely read this. But just speed read it. Read like every 10th page, you'll get the story. Go to the last 10 pages, you know. Read the first 10 pages, the last 10 pages, good enough. Everything in between will just annoy you. All right, you guys have a good night, and we'll talk to you next time.